The war in Ukraine. Overnight, Speaker Pelosi and a delegation of other House members making a surprise visit to Kyiv to meet with President Zelenskyy before heading to Poland for talks with officials there.
In Kyiv, relatives of Ukrainian fighters holed up in that steel plant in Mariupol, rallying in the streets, calling for more evacuations of their families from the besieged city. ABC's Marcus Moore joins us live from Kyiv. Good morning, Marcus.
Well, Eva, good morning. The meeting this weekend here in Kyiv is just the latest visit to Ukraine by high-ranking U.S. officials, and the meeting is part symbolic and also part strategic as war grips this country.
Overnight, Ukrainian President Zelenskyy releasing a video of House Speaker Nancy Pelosi and a congressional delegation making an unannounced visit to Ukraine.
Nice to meet you.
The delegation meeting with Zelenskyy in Kyiv on Saturday. Pelosi pledging America's support and saying more U.S. aid is on the way.
Our commitment is to be there for you until the fight is done.
This as Zelenskyy pleads for continued U.S. military equipment. The delegation now in neighboring Poland.
This travel here to send a clear message to the world. America stands with Ukraine. We stand with Ukraine until victory is won.
In Ukraine, the bitter fight continues. U.S. officials made a plea to Americans to avoid going to Ukraine after former U.S. Marine Willie Joseph Cancel was killed. Despite the plea, Angelina Jolie making her own surprise visit to the country, meeting medical staff and children in Lviv caught up in the missile strikes. Blaring air raid sirens interrupted her visit, Jolie rushing out for safety. But brief glimmers of hope emerging from the war-ravaged city of Mariupol. 20 civilians trapped in the besieged steel plant able to evacuate during a ceasefire. These graphic images showing some of the estimated 3,000 civilians and soldiers sheltering in underground bunkers nearby, some suffering with open wounds, barely any food or much-needed medical supplies. If you will not stop this here in Ukraine, he warns, it will go farther to Europe. Every day, Ukrainians continue to defend themselves. In this small village north of Kyiv, residents flooding their homes with water from a nearby dam to block Russian troops. Calling for the evacuation of their loved ones, relatives of those trapped in the steel plant rallying in Kyiv. Victoria Krasovska losing her husband in the war last month, making sure his friends are able to see their family once more.
The world must not be silent when a great tragedy unfolds before its eyes.
And that highlights the pain that so many families are enduring here in Ukraine as this war continues. And we've met a number of people who want to come back to their homes here in Ukraine, despite the threat of airstrikes. It is a threat those who have stayed behind have endured every single day, certainly in these past 67, as this war continues.
Yeah, they are truly resilient. All right, Marcus Moore, thank you. Joining us now is retired U.S. Army Lieutenant General Doug Lute, who is also a former U.S. ambassador to NATO. General Lute, good morning to you. It's great to have you. So we saw there Speaker Nancy Pelosi in Kyiv leading a congressional delegation. How important are high-level visits like this for morale and the war effort in Ukraine? And should President Biden go next?
Look, I think visits like the one you just reported are important. Symbolically, for the Ukrainian people, for the Ukrainian leadership, but they also carry a very practical message, and that is that U.S. support will continue. And I think the theme here is that we'll continue to provide arms, humanitarian assistance, and political support as much as it takes, as long as it takes.
And speaking of that support, President Biden is asking for $33 billion from Congress in aid to Ukraine. How critical is that support as we enter this next phase? And do you think this is just the beginning, a long-term financial commitment Americans need to get used to?
Well, it is critical because the nature of the support has changed. In phase one, we were providing light weaponry. Things that the Ukrainian military and citizenry needed in and around the fight in Kyiv. And now the shift has been towards more heavy systems. So this is very significant because the systems required now in phase two in the so-called Donbass area are different. So we've got to sustain this support. I think the support can continue indefinitely. And certainly, even if we can imagine a point where the fight is over, there are hundreds of billions of dollars of damage to the physical infrastructure of Ukraine. So Ukraine's going to need our help for a long time.
General Lute, thank you so much for your time this morning. We do appreciate it. And just a reminder, tune into This Week later this morning. George Stephanopoulos goes one-on-one with Ukrainian Ambassador Oksana Markarova and U.S. Aid Administrator Samantha Power about the war in Ukraine. Plus, top House Republican Michael McCaul discusses the Title 42 pandemic border policy.
Hi, everyone. George Stephanopoulos here. Thanks for checking out the ABC News YouTube channel. If you'd like to get more videos, show highlights, and watch live event coverage, click on the right over here to subscribe to our channel. And don't forget to download the ABC News app for breaking news alerts. Thanks for watching.